Mounting out at the back of the grandstand, you've got this towering grandstand above you and huge crowds. You go through the tunnel, out onto the track, and stand up on the back of your neck. And so Cox Plate Day, the biggest day of them all, yeah, it goes up to another level. It's fantastic.
Number one onto the track, a winner of $2.5 million, Rough Habit. 5 Group 1 wins last season. Number 2, the Evergreen champion, Superimpose. Number 3, the winner of the 1990 Cox Plate, Better Loosen Up. Number 4, Prince Salieri, 4th in the race last year. Number 5, Citizen, 2 placings in the race in the last 2 years. Number 6, the current weight for age champion of Australia, the AJC Derby winner, Naturalism. Number 7, Kinjite, the Epsom Handicap winner. Number 8, the Mighty Mare, one of the greatest to grace Australian race courses, Let's Elope. Number 9, the Caulfield Cup winner, Mannerism. Number 10, a Group 1 winner at his past 2 starts, the champion 3-year-old Coronation Day. Bart Cummings, second runner, Muirfield Village, Stephen King in the saddle. Number 12, the Caulfield Guineas winner, Palace Rain. Number 13, winner of the 2-year-old Triple Crown and the Golden Slipper Stakes, Burst. And number 14, from Sydney, Slight Chance, Shane Dye is the rider.
In the next 2 minutes, you're going to experience probably as good a 2 minutes of sport anywhere in the world. It'll be over in 2 minutes. And it's just something about it, the roar. And you could hear that sound coming up. And nowhere else in Australian racing, and probably world racing, do we get that sound, that roar, because people are so close, they can nearly touch them.
The one thing that I remember, when I trotted him back up to the barriers, he got behind the gates and he didn't want to walk. He wanted to jog, jig, jog, jig, jog, jig, jog, and he was eyeballing all the other horses. So it was game on for him. I knew we were ready for something special. We were ready to go.
Let's Elope wasn't the easiest horse to ride, and I had a little bit of a shoulder injury, which compounded the issue. But this was my first ride in the Cox Plate, so I knew the enormity of it and let all that noise around me just disappear and stayed focused and knew I had a big job in front of me.
Actually, I said to Greg Hall on the particular day, I got behind Peter Hudson and he gave me a bit of a bad run. And I should have won an earlier race. And I said to Greg Hall, I said, if I get behind this bloke again, I said, just kick me up the arse, will you?
They stand to attention for the plate. They're off. And Superimpose missed it about 1.5 lengths and away brilliantly here. Kinjite flying from the outside with Coronation Day.
I knew his race pattern. I knew the way he raced. The gate's open and the roar's huge. He always gets back last, second last or whatever.
We really look to see that no rider contravenes the rules and causes interference, especially in the early stages of the race, because it can be detrimental to a horse's chances.
Naturalism 5th on the inside.
Naturalism was the best horse in the race, I thought, right then, having won on him twice. He's got natural gate speed, and that's an advantage in a Cox Plate going out of the straight the first time, and I thought he'd be in the first 4 or half a dozen, one off the fence. So I wanted to keep an eye on him, and I was in a really nice rhythm going out of the straight the first time and down that bottom side from the mile to the 12.
She's going forward down to the winning post the first time. Muirfield Village out wide, Let's Elope back in the centre.
You know, I remember the race well. I didn't want to be too far back because it was going to be a pressure race at the finish, so I wanted to be somewhere in the mix of things. He was travelling very well, extremely well. That horse, when he raced big, he travelled strong. You know, all those Group 1s I won on him, he was hard on the bit and wanting to go all the way. And I was probably going down that back there. I might have been midfield or a little worse, but not too far off the leader, maybe 5 or 6 lengths. He was travelling very well, extremely well.
It wasn't a very strongly run race. It was a very steadily run race. So there was a bit of, when they steadied the pace, there was a little bit of bumping and barging of it, which just happens when things need to go a little bit faster.
But I recall going past about the 1400 metre mark, they started to jam up a little because everybody got into their positions, so the tempo of the race slowed down, and there was quite a bit of jostling and jamming up And I remember there was a horse on my outside that cut in front of me and had half a length on me and cut in front of me, and I actually got checked and got jostled out of it, and then I was pumped out 3 wide. But that was okay because I still had cover.
Getting down to the 1,000 metre side of the track, this is working perfectly for me. As we straighten up around the half mile, I'm sitting in behind Burst, and I pull out 4 wide to go up outside of Burst, and I'm trotting, absolutely trucking into the race. And I'm thinking to myself, we get to the school, and I'm thinking to myself, I reckon I could win the Cox Plate here. It's going really good. It's flying.
And when I knew that Peter Hutchins was in front of me, the money person rider didn't want to follow, I was actually getting quite desperate. I had a wall horse outside. I was thinking about, holding the 2 positions and getting back to the rail. But looking at it from behind, it looked pretty squeezy. So I thought to myself, now I'm going to have to get to the stage there at the half mile somewhere to be getting out.
Next minute, I'm heading towards the ground. And all that could go through my head was, why? The bloody thing just fell over.
There's a fall in the Cox Plate, and Naturalism's lost the rider. Citizen is out of the race, and so is Palace Rain. Rough Habit has been knocked out of it now, and as the race to the 500 metre mark now, and the leader here is Ken Jatay. Here comes Let's Elope.
But all of a sudden, it was like a tripwire. Palace Rain of Mick on Naturalism, and I saw Rough Habit run into the back of them. I saw Citizen's Colours.
Naturalism actually propped and nearly tipped me over his head, and then when he propped and he swerved, then he knuckled over, and then I fell. He was trying to get out of the horse's road. Don't worry. Sometimes they can't. They just crash. But he, from a full gallop, he did prop to try and miss him. And when he did, he flung me up over his head. And then, of course, I probably unbalanced him, and down he went.
After all the carnage, the fall and all that, which doesn't go through a jockey's mind, because you still concentrate, you focus on winning this Cox Plate. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter. You think of nothing else bar winning it.
Naturalism, Mick Dittman, who was following him, just gets supermaned in the air, and Greg Childs makes the decision, seeing that, press the button and just go on Let's Elope. It was hectic. It was off its head, because at the 400 metre mark there was 3.5 lengths between the remainder of the field.
The tempo of the race was really picking up quickly, and Let's Elope was coming into it really strong. But Let's Elope had this bad tendency of laying in. I was able to switch the stick into my left hand, which was my sore shoulder hand. I had to do it because otherwise I wouldn't have got the response that I needed to win the Cox Plate.
And I noticed Superimpose started to circle the field. Let's Elope also took off, striding up outside the leaders on the home turn to basically join the leaders, who were Slight Chance, Kinjide, Prince Salieri was moving into the race, and Better Loosen up behind them was looking for a run with Simon Marshall aboard. So the business end of the race on the home turn was really taking shape.
Simon could ride, and he maybe could have come underneath my shoulder and pushed me out. But I held him back in, and so he said to make another decision on Better Loosen Up.
Super joined me again, and we were head and head. And then the inside horses, the 3-year-olds, were all shifting out. As they dropped off inside me, I could see this 4-horse gap just appear with Let's Elope off the fence. And then I pointed his nose in that gap inside, just at the 100 metre mark. And he was flying. I gave him another tickle with the left hand, and we were off. And I thought, here we go. He's going to love this, because he never gets beaten in a photo finish. And he was loving the competition too. 3 strides later, and she shifted in so quick. It was 3 horses within about 5 strides, and just shut me out with that 50 to go. And it's just like a bad dream. It's Cox Plate just disappearing. Superimpose was still winding up.
And so I've only got one job to do, and that is get past Let's Elope. And he knew what I was doing, and I knew what he was doing. I got stronger and stronger with the adrenaline rushing that we're going to get her, we're going to get her, you and I are going to get her, mate. Whatever we do, we're going to get her.
You throw the kitchen sink at it. So close to the winning post, 50 metres to go, I heard this screaming noise, and it was G. Hall and Superimpose coming down the outside, and he blazed me right on the line. We finished second, but there was a lot of commotion going on. I'm pulling up, everybody yelling at me, what was I doing? I was hanging in, causing a lot of interference, and there was to be more to be heard about that.
Now, Kinjite in the middle from Muirfield Village, followed by Superimpose. Let's Elope out wide as race to Kinjite. Slight chance fights back down the outside. Superimpose. Let's Elope in the middle. Prince Salieri getting a run. Better loosen up and Superimpose. Let's Elope in front. Superimpose driving. Super. I think Superimpose to Let's Elope on the Cox Plate. Third maybe Kinjite the rail. Better loosen up behind them. And the rider of Burst has been thrown from the saddle after going over the line. And a fall on the Cox Plate at the 600 metre mark. Three of them have been put out of the race. Naturalism, Citizen and Palace Rain. And the judge has called for the photo. The judge has called for the photo at a sensational W S Cox Plate to 1992.
Greg Hall standing on Superimpose's neck, waving to the crowd, declared as the winner. I rode in and I could see David Hayes go for Arthur, and just threw the reins over his head and just said he just should have won, I'm sorry. And with that, they all turned their backs and walked off.
It was something else. It was something else. You don't know you're doing it at the time. I've seen footage of it and all that, and the adrenaline's rushing so much, so this time I stood up in the irons and I went...
Spring and country racing, stronger together. Support our local communities and everything they've got to offer. Get out there into some country racing and turn a day into a weekend. Do it for the road trip and the new places. The fun, fashion, free kids activities and up-close racing action. Get 20% off tickets and packages with our spring special. Stronger together this spring. That's why we do it. Book now.
Where we belong, country race is strong, it's got it all. I remember is weigh in and we go back to the jockey's room. First thing I done was I said to Mick Dittman, I said, bend over. So I kicked him up the arse.
So it was unusual where we had a protest fifth against second in the Cox Plate, but there was a short margin between second and fifth. So it wasn't surprising that Simon did lodge an objection because he was firmly of the belief that he would have beaten Let's Elope home had interference not occurred.
You put up a strong case in the inquiry room. There's no friends in there. You make a good case for you and your horse and your connections, and you leave it up to the jury to decide, which are the chief stewards. They decided that Better Listens Up running was denied and the protest was upheld. But to this day, I dispute the fact that he was ever going to beat Let's Elope. And I'd actually like to have another crack at that inquiry because I believe that there was never a full gap there for Better Listen Up to come through. Simon Marshall was desperate and he was pushing through a gap that wasn't entirely there for him. We won't hold a grudge. That was 28 years ago. We move on.
Superimpose, the mighty Superimpose has taken out the Cox Plate for 92.
I really believe that actually Superimpose saved the Cox Plate in his own way because it went from despair from everyone, from the punters and everyone else. What's going to happen now? The 8-year-old who'd run second the year before, had run second in the Melbourne Cup. He was no slouch. He was a great horse, and he sailed down the outside. But he sort of sealed himself into racing immortality by winning that at 8 years of age. That saved the race because it became even a greater event after that.
Superimpose deserved it. He was a superstar. He deserved it. If Let's Elope had gone straight and won it, she would have deserved it too. Better Listen Up. It would have been fantastic to see him, and he probably was the unlucky one out of it all.
This particular day, it didn't come off. It didn't come off. This wouldn't have been the best story of a Cox Plate unless circumstances prevailed the way they did on the day. This is just adds to the legend of the race. You look at that stuff, but you've got to park it and move on pretty quick. And as you can tell after this interview I have, mate, I've forgotten about it.
If you were viewing the race and assessing how the horses were travelling at the 800 metres, there wasn't a horse travelling any better than Naturalism at that stage of the race. He was, put it in Mick Dittman's words later, he was bolted. Who knows what would have happened if Palace Rain had have stayed on its feet and Naturalism had have stayed on its feet. We might have seen the best finish of all time. Without the incident at the half mile, I feel sure that he would have won and won easy. Just before he fell, if he'd have got room to move, you know, I'd only wanted another 50 metres, and I'd have been past Peter Hutchinson from inside me,
and then there'd been no interference, I'd have been gone. And you start to think about, like, how did he fall? What happened? And you realise what exactly happened. The horse, somehow that horse inside has cut something's heels from inside him, or got caught up with his inside horse's legs, tipped over sideways, and bang, I went over the top and couldn't get out of his road. I don't think there was anything spoken in an ambulance.
And this year, well, to say we just like they all just fell into one basket. Every superstar over the previous 5 or 6 years to all fall in the one basket for the greatest race ever. And I don't think, as I say, you'll never get a race as good as that ever again. Even though I destroyed it, but I'm still proud to be involved with that race. Would you call it a highlight? I don't know whether you call it a highlight, but to be involved in that, it's a great talking point. To this day, it's a great talking point.
It'll never be forgotten because of the quality of the Cox Plate that year is quite extraordinary. Those horses, like you'll never see a Cox Plate again like that. Some horses I'd like to see, without mentioning names, champions that have won it before that particular race, would have they? Because there's never been a Cox Plate like that, and there'll never be another one like it.
They're off. And Superimposed missed it about a length and a half, and away brilliantly here. Kinjite flying from the outside with Coronation Day. Slight chance going up in the centre. Naturalism behind them with Palace Rain. And here's the filly burst down the outside. She's going forward down to the winning post the first time. Muirfield Village out wide. Let's Alate back in the centre as they steady with 1700 to go. And Kinjite led now from burst second. Coronation Day third inside. Slight chance fourth a length. Naturalism fifth on the inside. Outside at Palace Rain. Muirfield Village out 4 wide around Citizen. Let's Alate had to check there over on the inside. Mannerism from Prince Salieri. Then came Superimposed. 2 to Better Loosen Up. And Rough Habit last of all. 1400 to go on the plate. And Slight Chance took up the running. Slight Chance the leader now from Kinjite, who comes off the fence. They're followed by Burst and Coronation Day the rail. Then Palace Rain fifth. Naturalism running sixth on the inside. Muirfield Village out 3 deep around Citizen. They're followed by Mannerism further back. Then Let's Alate out 3 deep around the outside of Prince Salieri. 2 to Superimposed. Third last. Second last in the Cox Plate at the 1,000 metre mark now as Better Loosen Up. And Rough Habit the Kiwi last of all. Kinjite goes up to Slight Chance at the 900 metre mark, a length and a half burst. Coronation Day getting a nice run, a half away, fourth on the rail. Then Palace Rain, Muirfield Village. Naturalism is locked away on the inside now as they start to make their run. The mare pulls to the outside, Let's Alate around Citizen. Mannerism went back to the fence. Old Superimposed peeling to the outside with Better Loosen Up. There's a fall. There's a fall in the Cox Plate. And Naturalism's lost the rider. Citizen is out of the race and so is Palace Rain. Rough Habit has been knocked out of it now. And as they race to the 500 metre mark now, and the leader here is Kinjite. Here comes Let's Alate. Let's Alate with a mighty run out wide, going up quickly now. Kinjite in the middle from Muirfield Village, followed by Superimposed. Let's Alate out wide as race to Kinjite. Slight Chance fights back down the outside. Superimposed. Let's Alate in the middle. Prince Salieri getting a run. Better Loosen Up and Superimposed. Let's Alate in front. Superimposed driving. Super. I think Super and O's to Let's Alate on the Cox Plate.